this road right here. Right there. That's Highway 16. And this over here, this right up here is north. And of course west over here. So that gives you some kind of idea of where we are in this particular field. There's a house right here. And as we go, this is the center of town. This is Main Street, right through there. So you get an idea of kind of where we are as we look at this. Now that we know where we are and what we're dealing with, we want to know what would the feasibility put in an orchard right here. And it looks like this has already been in some kind of acreage of some kind of crop already. So let's go ahead and click on menu, and we're going to do that. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to click on TAA. What does that mean? So I'm going to click on it because it tells us what the soil type is. And then what it does is it's going to tell us, click on it. There you go. You notice when it's done this thing, it's put a little red X on there. When it does that, it tells us it's a Tehama soil. And you can see that the Tehama loam soil is called TAA. And it's 85% of the soil behaves like this. So we're going to click on Tehama. And it's going to give us also a profile, and that tells us a lot of different things. So the one thing that you can see right here on this right here is all of the A layer in the horizon. Notice it's 107 centimeters. That's about it's exactly 1.07 meters. So it's about 3 feet in depth, which for orchards, we'd like to see that soil a little bit deeper than that. But let's just move on. The other part to this, if we take a look at this soil right here, it's the B layer. So it is a pretty well-defined, fairly mature A layer with a B layer, which means it's probably a little older than just an A and a C layer, which are a lot of alluvial fans. So it has a little bit more age to it. But it also has a pretty thick B layer, which means it has quite a bit of clay. So you might want to expect that at least for the first 3 feet it's really well drained, and then maybe it's a little more slowly drained in the subsoil. But the topsoil that we have right here, basically that A layer, means it's fairly well drained, but it's only about 3 feet in depth. So let's take a look at some other things. Let's look at organic matter. And you'll notice that in the first 20 centimeters all the way down to about where the A layer stops, a significant amount, not a whole lot. It's about 0.5%, maybe a little bit more than 0.5%, maybe 0.8%. So that isn't a lot, but that's not unusual for our soils, especially ones that have been farmed. And then if we go to our pH reading, you'll notice that right here near the top. Let me see if I can scroll in on this. Oh, I guess I can't. Anyway, right here in this location, right where the A layer is, we have about a 7, a little under 7, 6.8 to 7, which is really, really ideal, not only for nutrient uptake, but also for plants to be able to do well in it. And then let's take a look at EC, electric conductivity. If you don't know what that is, all you have to do is click this little question mark, and then it tells you, it goes back to the web, and tells you what all of it means. Electroconductivity is basically the amount of dissolved salts that are in it. And that will tell us if there's lots of salt in the soil. For instance, if it's a very alkali soil, the pH is going to be a lot higher, and nutrients are going to have a hard time getting in. And of course, it tends to kind of suck water right out of the plant as well. So that tells us a lot. And we've done it in the lab, so you all know what EC is, you know what pH is, and why that's important. Now, there's other things in there too that I'll let you look at, but really I wanted you to see the EC and the pH and what that means. Now, we're going to close that for a second. And I want to take a look at what the original soil series says. So when you click on the original soil series description, it takes a minute to boot up, but it's going to tell us a little bit about, for instance, the A layer. This number right here, where it says 10YR, all of this tells us the color. Now, I'll be making a video also on how to do soil color and what importance that is. There's a book that has little perforations or holes in it, and then it has little colors underneath it like paint chips. And then you, when the soil's moist, you compare it to that. And that way you can get the soil series number like 10YR. It has a little yellow, a little red in it. It looks kind of a pale brown. But anyway, all of that tells us a little bit about the colors. But I also want you to look at the textures as well. It says it's slightly sticky, which indicates there's some silt as well as clay in it. Slightly plastic, that's a little bit more clay in it as well. Also, it can be strongly acidic, but in this case, when we looked at pH, it was like 6.8, so it's not too bad. And if we look through it, it's pretty consistent in terms of its color, although as it gets a little bit closer to the B layer, it's a little bit more of a yellowish brown. And it gets even more slightly acid, very slightly acid at 6.5. It's high bulk density because you're seeing a little bit more clay introduced to it. And then we get to our B layers. And those B layers here and here go down about 5 feet. It starts around a foot and go down to 5 feet. So it's a fairly thick layer, pretty well defined. So I'm probably certain that this particular soil is going to have a, especially as it gets dried out in the summertime, it's going to maybe have a hard pan. So there may be some restrictions to it. So as you read the series, you're getting a kind of a sense that we might be able to put a orchard in it, but there may be some restrictions that we have to maybe take a look at. So let's close this and let's go back to the soil taxonomy. Tells you a little bit about the makeup of the soil. I'll let you kind of look at that. But where we really want to go is the land classification. So this resource really tells us a lot of good stuff, and we can do it in the comfort of our office, and we can, before we actually do any sampling and sending stuff to the lab, at least we have some background information. So right now I'm kind of torn, maybe 50-50 about an orchard. Right now I'm thinking to myself, well, it's kind of a shallow A layer, but it would be really good for things like row crops, vegetables, forage crops, except for maybe alfalfa because they have a really, really deep root system. But things like grains, like wheat, oats, triticale, some of those might work well. But let's see what it says. For non-irrigated, it says has 4S. That means that this 4S means there's some slight problems with it, some restrictions, some limitations. And if you want to know what that is, you just click that button right there. And it's going to tell you a little bit about what the restriction might be. So I'm going to go, you can click on this handbook, but I already have it open, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that book. Oops, wrong book. And this is a class 2, class 3 soil, so I'm going to go class 3, and it says number 4, as I suspected, very slow permeability of the soils, of the subsoil. That's that B layer. It's a clay layer, water comes to there and kind of stays there. And if there's roots are in it and you have water that is really slow to move through it, we might have some rot problems that isn't really good. Now, the other thing that we need to look is what that S means. It says 4S. So it says, all right, first of all, it's permeable and it's semi-impermeable in the B layer. But then I don't know what that S stands for. And there it is right there. It says soil limitations in the root zone. And because that is really, really important in terms of getting nutrients and water up through the plant, we have a bit of a problem already developing. So we see that B layer is pretty restrictive in terms of letting water through it. A layer is great, but that B layer is causing some problems. So what we've seen here today is by using this tool, we can get a really good idea as far as what is going on in the soil. We have an opportunity to see like what the soil profile looks like. We get to look at some of the land capabilities and some of the limitations possibly on this. So at this particular point in time, I would probably lean towards not putting an orchard in, or maybe grapes or something else that would be a little bit more hardy and can actually compete with blasting through some of that clay layer. But anyway, that is SoilWeb. I hope that you have understood it a little bit better with this demonstration. Now what I'm going to be doing next is you need to go to the website and you need to get the assignment. Right below this video will be your assignment. I've given you a scenario, and then you have to find the place and then have to basically write up, all right, what are you going to do? You're going to do this particular project or not, and why or why not? So hopefully this helped, and we'll be seeing you in the lab.